This powerful monster serves a woman. She is the Blood Queen on the No continent. She is the true king. Because of all the ghosts, like 500 years ago, her lover, GM, not only betrayed her, but even locked her in a shallow well until yesterday when the red moon appeared. She was able to free the lover. Now, thanks to imprisoning her, he became the hero of killing demons in Tiang near and far that day. He received an order again. The mission was to rescue a little girl possessed by demons. Only to see the lover pour silver powder into a fragrant bag and then hang the fragrant bag around the girl's neck. Just a moment later, she lying on the ground from the ground, her body escaped and the light gathered together. Unexpectedly it was the Blood Queen that had escaped. She wanted to find the GM to explain clearly, but the GM did not bother to talk about the old love story and simply ordered the student to torture May. The Blood Queen had prepared in advance. After turning around to avoid her, she immediately transformed back into her true self. After a while of struggling, she was able to rush out, but the student risked her life and did not let go of the iron net that had covered her. It consumes all the Blood Queen magic items, making it easier to catch her. In the end, she was still worth transforming back into her human form. She was caught by two shamans and locked in a cage at a crucial moment. She swung her tail and grabbed the learner, the GM. Without hesitation, immediately lit a fire and burned both his first love and the brown hair of the north. But the Bloody Queen broke the cage, flew away, and returned to the palace, where there was only one person in the past. The woman wearing the mask cheated Lin, picked up the Blood Queen. She took off her mask. She just found out that it was her sister whose face was ruined. She was heartbroken and caressed the Wit Queen. Her face blinked. Returning to the way it was, the two sisters planned to put all their strength into action, so he ruined palace would definitely have to be repaired, only to see the Bloody Queen wave her hand, a room that had become magnificent and magnificent. She then relied on her strength. The Blood Page strongman began to summon his subordinates from the past. The first response was a knight who closely approached the house riding him. He was very strong. No one knew what his true nature was. The Blood Queen looked at the horse and her body. She knew she needed to see him, but there was a soldier peeping at her. She waved her tail to clearly show her strength, so more and more subordinates returned, whether it was the black precious girl emitting golden light, two heavenly kings, 8 arms, shouting, well written, the spirit magical then Lon 10 all chose to submit to their allegiance, and they planned to bloodbathe Hoa Kin town 7 days later. But the strange thing was the big bear, close guard still couldn't find any face of the Blood Queen, not knowing that at this time, the big bear was fighting with GM, but after Snow died tragically, GM kept going died tragically, GM kept going everywhere looking for a new apprentice. In the end, he used a bag of gold coins to buy a poor guy with a 7th name. Before he left, his mother even gave him a gift. He had a transmission that told him to take care of it carefully and become the 7th student of the GAM. They were going to town to buy things when they discovered a girl being taken to be burned by a lion. The first time he fell in love, he saw her. Immediately, he saved the girl in the name of GM, student. This girl did not disappoint him and took him to take a bath at night. Gradually, the two of them made a lifelong promise to be together, but it was important to have a lover just like that. This girl background is definitely not simple. Yes, she is the only daughter of the White Queen. According to the plan, she is in a miserable area. Although she is useful, her heart is deeper than her own. Immersed in this love again first, she wanted to run away with Burn, but Burn was still fighting in real life. The opponent was a big bear, Hanei. The animal-shaped monster was very strong, so the first step was to fight it back to its human form. It very simple. Just need a bag of silver powder. Once you've transformed into a human, just aim at the weak spots. That okay, but the GM underestimated Handy's strength because he took a direct blow to the forehead and pulled out the iron club but didn't. How long did it take for him to be beaten until he was face to face? Luckily, the GM acted in time. When the big bear was thrown away, he didn't want to fall into the pincer's trap, so he tried to escape. But the GM cut the rope and got stuck in an iron cage. It fell on the GM body. When he used an iron chain on his body, he found it inevitable that the big bear would turn back to its original form. The button also started to thrown out a bag of silver powder. The big bear, however, was unable to transform into a human form. Finally, it was chained to a cage and then forced to release it. A bag of silver powder. The next day, the teacher and his student found an orc to be chariot driver, but suddenly the ground exploded. The chariot was thrown far away, and a earth-changing monster crawled up. It didn't say a word and immediately attacked the father. People were beaten until they rolled on the ground. Monster chased after them. The beasts were hot-tempered. The crazy man turned his horse to the sky and shouted loudly. His goal was to replace the dogs and torches. When they saw that, they quickly hid in a cave, but in front of them, behind them was a huge abyss and a jung mouth. The two thought about it and thought about it. Finally, they chose to jump into the abyss. They fell for 10 minutes. They were really lucky. They met the fisherman. They blinked and hoped again. It was okay. It didn't dare to jump into the water and pulled out the monster head. He immediately jumped into the water, created waves, flipping both people and the boat. As soon as they got up to the surface, the monster grabbed them and immediately sank into the water. This monster is also a very good swimmer. Burning was tired of struggling. Then he pulled out a knife and stabbed it into the monster hand. It hurt so much that it jumped out of the water. Burning stood on the monster back and raised the knife to stab repeatedly. But the GM put it on the shore and pointed forward. The monster in the middle of the sky was so unlucky that he crashed into a rock and burned, but he was lucky to escape death. but as soon as he sat down to rest, a sword was pointed at his face. It turned out that it was the White Queen. She knew that her daughter was too dependent, so she planned to be strict. She broke the ladder, but at the moment she made her move, the precious stone that her mother had set to burn radiated red light. The White Queen was so scared that she dropped her sword, then she turned around and turned into a white vulture. He went to find his teacher. The teacher told him that this was a witch stone, a former treasure of the Blood Queen that could increase her magic. But then it was stolen by a witch. It seemed like his mother's feelings was not ordinary at this time. The Blood Queen knew about the witch kick. But the 3 days had passed and it was time to take action. The Blood Queen and her subordinates turned into balls of light and headed straight towards the foot of the fire canal. The weak city gate was destroyed, horses, riders, and people rushed in. It turned out that the person was just an illusion. This was its true identity. Then the 8-armed king appeared. The golden lights also arrived, and in the blink of an eye, Hawk and guards had no more strength to resist, especially the riding horse. His body was as easy as catching a young man in the citadel. With a full stomach, the magician's soul, on the other hand, he was not so lucky. He was stabbed by his mother with a trident and then burned by a magic staff, seducing both soul and body. This incident shocked the Blood Queen, even though she was once her Dharma protector. But her mother could not burn Hwin Ni mold love. She immediately took action, but the strength between the two on the lake was too great. She was blinded against a pillar. The wild Blood Queen raised her hand in tears to end her life. From now on, Hoa Kin town had been completely destroyed, but Turned was busy enjoying the two of them in love when Hui caught him and told Burn to come here. He didn't have good intention, but not only did he not listen to him, but because of her, he went against his teacher. He swung his sword and cut off the iron chain, telling Mai Tram to run ahead, but Hwin immediately stopped him. It was clear that the witch's kick in front of his chest was no good. His wings flew away. And he couldn't believe this. He chased after the girl, but fell into the ambush of a horse riding a human and a beast man hiding in the darkness. He saw them all and joined the battle. The 3 of them fought and retreated. Who would have retreated into the same path as the armored knight carrying a piece of wood and crashed into the unfortunate beast? But it was not easy for the 2 teachers and student to struggle and fall down the Quim cliff. Leaving them alone to be captured, survived. And then brought it back to the Sun Blood Queen to feed him. Thanks to the support of the trees, he was lucky to escape death when he fell into the abyss. He also picked up his teacher magic suggestions and looked up to see the best man still hanging on the cliff in a mountain. Other development. Kim is handed up to the Blood Queen. She borrows the power of the Blood Page, causing the GM to fall into an illusion in which she regains her former beautiful appearance, and the GM immediately passionately hugs the Blood Queen and prepares to be intimate, but the next to her suddenly took action to steal the stone because she thought that it was she who killed and swallowed her. She must punish this traitor properly. The White Queen not disappoint her. She was ready for her daughter, confronting Ms. Min while John had the 2 sisters fell into a pile of white apricot stones behind the stone pillar. They carelessly dropped the stone. The witch on the other side of the horse riding the person soon disliked GM and had no way back to face the evil. His giant mouth and you continuously mocked him. Are you fighting in dragon form, afraid of using the image of a human horse riding a human, always boasting that you are a golden knight? He agreed to fight in human form and politely handed over his weapon. For the other side, the Blood Queen found the white apricot. She must punish this traitor. But the White Queen pushed her to the ground and burned her, and the beastmen also arrived, but just as they joined the fight, the golden man burned his hand and immediately hit the fence. But while he was kneeling down, he happened to see the witch stone. When he picked up the wand, it became strange and the golden light also turned into a table. Both sides rushed straight into each other and burned, trying to win and rush forward at the critical moment. He secretly attacked the 8-armed Tian Vong because he couldn't hit him and felt like there was no way to save him. But this was a trap for horses riding people who got hit and fell to the ground. The generals died in succession. The Blood Queen became the sole commander, but her sister kept clinging tightly to her and beat her. Finally, she was helpless and touched her sister's face. Her heart was broken. Green said to the Blood Queen, once truly loved her and at the same time secretly pulled out a bloody queen knife to expose his evil plan, like burning Fai Jiao and hitting her in the stomach. Her heart was melted and she had no strength left.